We are 1 week into the Utah Jazz season, and us and all of Jazz Nation have one question on our minds. Is the Utah Jazz good? We're answering all of that and more coming up next on the Upper Bowl Perspective. Welcome to another episode of the Upper Bowl Perspective, an unofficial Utah Jazz podcast giving you elevated takes on Utah Jazz hoops, no lower bowl access required. And Kyler Landon, we actually got some regular season Jazz basketball this week, and the Jazz exceeded expectations on basically every single front. They went 2-1 in their first week of play. They're 3-0 against the spread, one of six teams in the league to still be undefeated against the spread, and have just looked head and shoulders above what was expected of this team, especially considering they were heavy favorites to be the worst team in the Western Conference and a bottom four team in the league. And everyone that I've talked to, my family, friends have reached out saying, are the Jazz actually way better than we think they are? Now, that being said, we have a small sample size. Remember, we're still only 3 games into the regular season, but we wanted to spend this first segment going over just kind of a highlight of what the Jazz have done so far since the season began, but doing it in a way that pays homage to the incredible week that they have. We've each done some research. We've watched all of the games, and we each have a couple overreactions that we're going to present to the group based on what we've seen so far with the Jazz. And then the other two of us are going to come in and say, is that an overreaction? You're crazy. Or, you know what? That might actually be a thing. That might actually be true. So six overreactions total. And let's go ahead and start off with a guy who we haven't seen on the mic yet this season, Landon.
What's up, guys? So to lead this off, the first overreaction that I have is actually ESPN bets over under for their win total this year. ESPN had them at 18 and a half. That was the line. I don't understand, like, based off of what we've seen so far this year, how you could keep that line. I definitely could see them doubling that based off of the way that they've played. Small sample size, yes, of course. But I mean, if you look at their offensive rating, fourth in the league, fifth overall net rating, they have a long way to fall to get to a point where I think that they are playing like well below like sub 500 basketball. Obviously, like, are they a playoff team? No, but like 37 wins, that is achievable. Like, they're playing at least 500 level basketball right now.
37 win. They could double their win total. Um, Look, I get it that the way that they've played in these three games would suggest that's possible. But 37 wins for a team that I just we're in the West, man. I think there's just too many good teams. And ultimately, two of the three games we faced have been teams that aren't really projected to be playoff teams. I think you also have to take strength of schedule in our first three games into account a little bit. Would I be more confident in the over than I was to start the season? Yes, but double is absolutely crazy talk for me. Could I see them getting into the 20s more likely? Sure, but 37 wins for a team that's won. That would be a 20 game increase, 19 game increase from last year. So that's not something you really ever see in basketball.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that the Jazz go 9 or 10 over their win total, maybe they're in the high 20s range, I might be more willing to get on board with that overreaction. But I think Kyler said it with strength of schedule. I mean, we lost to Sacramento, who is not projected to be a great team this year. I think their like win total was projected to be around mid 30s. And the Phoenix Suns are kind of in a similar boat. They have Devin Booker and no defense. And although we've played exceptionally well so far this season, it's a bit of a tough sell for me to think that they're going to double their win total. If you came in saying, maybe 28 and a half or something, maybe I'd go over with you. But I think for this one, we got to cool the Jets a little bit. The Jazz have been awesome. They've come out super, super strong, but this is an incredibly talented league. This is a very deep league. And I think we would need to see like 12 ACLs blown out in the Western Conference for the Jazz to hit double their win total.
Yeah. And for me, like the reason why I thought that this one to go with is not just like that they've won 2 out of the first 3 games, but it's kind of how they won. It's their style of play. It's the fact that they're starting 3 people over 7 feet right now, and somehow they're still holding their own defensively. And on top of that, they're playing with great pace. They're sharing the ball incredibly. The execution looks on point. And I think the way they play and the personnel they have, like you could throw good defenses at them, and they have counters. So I don't know. I see them winning a lot more than what people initially thought, just based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah, we might have to put a little bit of a pin in this one, wait for a bit of a larger sample size and see what they look like when they play some of the top teams in the West. Like I'm gonna wonder, are they going to be even remotely competitive against Jokic and the Nuggets or against the reigning champions in OKC? And I think once we see a little bit more, where if they can be competitive, keep it within one score game within 3 minutes left in the fourth with some of these better teams, then I think we'll have a much better reason to pound that double digit increase on the win total. Um, but just with who we beat so far and still with a small sample size, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see. But man, dude, you came out hot with a very strong overreaction. I like it. We are not keeping the kid gloves on tonight with our takes. Um, let's go ahead and move over to Kyler. I know Kyler mentioned one of them to me that I think is going to be super fun, so I'm excited to see what he has for us.
Yeah, mine I think is not quite as aggressive. I like the spirit of what Landon did, going definitely overreaction. This would be a pretty big jump, and it goes back to last episode. The thing that encouraged me the most in the preseason for Utah was how they were sharing the basketball in passing. And so my hot take is that they're going to be top five in the league this year in terms of assists per game. A little bit of context here. Last year they were 19th. I did share that last episode as well, but at 25 and a half per game. If you wanted to get in the top five last year, the top team in the league was Denver at 29.8, and then the fifth team was Indiana at 28.6. So you're talking 28 and a half, upwards of 30 assists per game to get into that top five range. So far in the 3 games so far this year for Utah, they've gone 38, 25, and 27 assists for an average of 30. Now, here's why I think they're going to be able to maybe not keep up 30 pace because that would be number one in the league last year, but top five pace. There's 2 reasons here, and one kind of leads into 2. Number one, we got rid of our ISO ball scorers last year. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. Those are the guys that had a lot of buckets that maybe weren't assisted quite as often. And because we got rid of those guys, the reason number 2 is I just think this is the way the Jazz have to play offense. I think it's the best way to play offense. It's been really beautiful to watch. I just don't even know, other than maybe Keontae George now, how many ISO ball scorers that we really have. And so I think assists is a great option, but it might also be our only option, which is why I think they'll keep up this assist pace.
Yeah, I think this is actually not that hot of a take. Like, I think it's super, super possible that this could happen. We basically got increased by like 3.5-ish from where we were last year to get in the top five, assuming that it's going to be about the same number this year as it was last year. And I think we see that just from the leap from Keontae. So just from the point guard position, he's averaging almost 10 assists a game for his first 3 games, which is up from Collier, who was our starting point guard for most of the season last year. He was in the high sixes. So we're already getting an additional 3 at the point guard position just right there if Keontae keeps up his pace. And on top of that, we're seeing a lot of intentional passing from our bigs. We've seen that with Walker Kessler. He seemed to be more focused on that. Yusuf Nurkic in the backup minutes. He's really, really good at passing from the elbows. And even Kyle Filipowski's been a little bit frisky just in terms of looking for opportunities on the outlet passes or for individuals who may be driving towards the basket. I think this is honestly a bet on Will Hardy being a fantastic coach, that he's going to keep assists as a focal point of his system. And based on what we've seen so far, I think there's definitely going to be enough passing going on where this could be a realistic expectation for the Jazz. I just wonder if as we get on some better competition and some better quality defenses, if we're going to be able to knock down enough shots over the course of the season to actually turn those passes into assists.
Okay, so I don't doubt like the amount of pass attempts that the Jazz are due. I do question how well those are going to be converted into assists. Um, Part of the reason is just how insane like their percentages have been this year. There will be regression to that. And again, like I think, are they going to be good? Yeah, I do. I think they're probably going to be in the upper half in assists per game, as you noted, because of Will Hardy's system. But I do think the inexperience is going to come out. I think people are going to come down to their normal shooting splits eventually. Walker Kessler is not a 75% 3-point shooter. And so, yeah, I think top 5 is just probably a little too high.
Yeah, I do think the point to sell this as an overreaction, because again, this isn't overreaction. I think the difference between the jump up three isn't as easy as Jay Bobby is making it out to be. That's half the league is in that 3-point difference. But do I think they can make it? Yeah.
Yeah. So like maybe not probable, but definitely possible. And it's just going to depend on the execution throughout the rest of the year. All right. Um, I like both of those. I have one that this is going to be, I have two takes. This one is definitely a little bit more scorchy than the other. And this is that the Jazz are going to have not one, but two players selected to the All-Star team this year. Let me make my case. Through the first week of the season, we have three candidates that could all theoretically make it on the All-Star team. Number one is our best player, Lauri Markkanen. Right now, he is sitting at fourth in the league in points per game. The only players who are scoring more than him per game are Tyrese Maxey, Giannis, and reigning MVP SGA. He is scoring lights out, including a 51-point performance that he had just the other night. He's also third in the league in 3-point makes per game at just under 5. And on top of this, he's doing, solid rebounding and assists on top of that. He is scoring like an and shooting like an absolute madman. And yes, this is a low sample size. There is going to be some regression, but Lauri Markkanen has been an all-star before. He was an all-star starter back when the Jazz hosted it a few years ago. And I think making the argument that he's going to be able to get back to that level, assuming that he keeps on playing around 30 minutes per game and continues to play this aggressively with the young core, I don't think that is too much of a stress to think that he could actually become an all-star level player this year. The other two, Kessler, going to keep it really simple. He is second in the league behind Wemby in blocks per game. He's top 15 in rebounds per game. He's 16 and 10 with with almost 5 stocks per game. So he's been an absolute defensive menace, and he has the second highest true shooting percentage in the league at 91%. Obviously, we're going to see some regression there, but if he's one of the best rim protectors, best rebounders, strongest anchor points of a defense in the league and shooting that highly efficient, I can see him making the All-Star team. Last one, Keontae. Super simple argument. He's 20 and 10. He's third in the league in assists behind Jokic and Harden. And I think that if he continues on this tear that he's been on passing the ball, then I don't see why he couldn't sneak in as like the 12th guy on an all-star team, considering how well he's been passing the ball. So there's my take. Jazz could have not just one, but two players named to the all-star team.
I don't think that's going to happen. And the number one reason that I don't believe that's going to happen is because I don't, even though we're 2-1 and I don't want to pour water on it, I don't think the Jazz are going to be winning enough to have multiple All-Stars. And ultimately, for these awards, All-Star, All-NBA, whatever, winning does matter and it gets taken into account quite a bit in the voting. And you don't usually see teams at the bottom of their conference, which I would still project the Jazz to be this season, with multiple All-Stars.
Yeah, I think if impact mattered for an All-Star game, maybe, because I think Walter Kessler's probably has All-Star level impact. But at the end of the day, winning, market size, box score stats, that's what determines All-Star games. And I don't think the Jazz are going to have enough of either of those to have more than one All-Star. Laurie is probably our best bet. I could see him being an All-Star. More than that would be crazy.
Yeah. I knew this was a little bit of an aggressive take. When I said it, I think you guys hit it on the head, the reasons why it most likely is not going to happen. And this is probably the most talented the league has ever been in terms of just talent across the board. I mean, I look at every team's roster and I look at, their starting five or even the guys who are like the 10th men on their roster. I'm like, ooh, I kind of like that guy. And I think sometimes living in our little bubble of loving the Utah Jazz, we forget that Markkanen, Kessler, and Keontae are all incredible players. But there are dozens of incredible players across this league who are going to be vying for those same positions. And it doesn't matter if you're having all-star level impact, it can only go to so many guys. And there's going to be more players who are deserving of that honor than will actually get the opportunity to be selected. So hopefully we get at least one this year as we continue on our rebuild, but hopefully down the road we can see all of those guys playing during All-Star weekend. All right, Landon, let's go back to you on your second overreaction.
Yeah, my second overreaction is that Walter Kessler is going to be a top 5 level center by the end of the season.
Make the case.
Let me just pull out some of his stats. Yeah, he's currently averaging 16.7 points, 9.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 2.5 steals, and 2.7 blocks. He's also shooting ridiculous splits from both three and the regular field right now. There's two guys I'm not even gonna discuss like they're better. I can't argue they're not, and that's Jokic and Wemby. That's silly to say otherwise. But I think you take the totality of the people who are below that. Walker Kessler fits right in. He's not averaging as many points as Bam or even Sengun, but he is more efficient than them. He's only 3 points per game behind Bam right now. Bam's only shooting 36.2% from the field. Same with Sengun. Sengun's probably better, but again, his efficiency isn't quite what Kessler is. So I think you take the totality of Walker Kessler's box score. There aren't very many, if centers out there right now that can match the complete kind of set of stats that Walker Kessler's bringing out.
I'll agree on the point that there aren't 5 centers that have started the season better than Kessler. But Walker Kessler being seen league wide as a top 5 center at the end of the season, I do think is a stretch. You mentioned it earlier that he's not going to be a that good of a 3-point shooter. Obviously, no one is ever going to be a 75% 3-point shooter. And I question, is he still taking 1 or 2 threes a game in game 60, or is this just something he's trying at the start of the season until it stops working? And all of a sudden, if you don't have the 3-point shot, people value the different things that a center can do. That's why the 2 best bigs are Jokic and Wemby, because they do so many things. And while Walker Kessler is certainly a star in his role, I think will be a limited role will lower his view league wide, and is ultimately why I think he hasn't signed an extension.
First off, I just want to say if Walker Kessler is going to be a top 5 rated center by the end of this year, maybe he can make an all-star team. Just saying, you never know. I think it's going to really depend on what if he was a Laker, he would have been like a 3-time all-star already. I think it's going to be interesting to see how his impact is felt throughout the rest of the season. As I'm just going over a couple more centers in the league that I think are also really good, I think about how they impact the game in ways that Walker Kessler can't. Like Cat is an absolute shooting machine, and he's in a big market team for the Knicks. I think he's going to get a lot of love. We were able to see Zubac play for the Clippers, and he's not super flashy, but he's also a guy who I would say is a star in his role. And then you got guys like Evan Mobley who are incredible on the defensive end of the court, even if they're a little bit limited on the offensive end. And then we haven't even talked about guys like Chet, who we're going to see what happens with Chet this year as he continues to evolve as a player, and he's still really young as well. We have a ton of talented bigs in the league, and I think where Kessler might fall a little bit short is that he very much fits that traditional center type of role. Yeah, he's taking a couple more threes per game, which is great, but he's still not impacting, passing the way that Şengün does or shooting the way that Cat does. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can be so good in that traditional center role that he's able to overshadow some of these guys who are maybe more of a modern center than what Walker Kessler is. I wouldn't rule it out. I think he's going to be in the same tier of guys who are going to be in that number 5 ranked center range. I think it's probably most likely he's going to be more in that 7 to 9 by the end of the year. But I think if he continues to be super efficient, continues to take some threes and just defend like crazy on defense, then I think there's a possibility he could jump into that echelon. I don't think it's super likely, but I think it's in the conversation. That was like a 7 out of 10 hot for me.
No, hotness, I'm giving you straight up big numbers because I don't think it's honestly in the realm of possibilities. So I'm going to give you higher than that for the hotness of that one, Landon. You have not come in with kid gloves, as Jay Bobby said. Your takes
You
are something.
I'll die on the double
All
Williams hill
right,
that Kyler
Kyler,
won't
what
exist.
do you got for your second one?
For my second one, I want to say two things. Number one, I struggled to find a framing for this one because I wanted to overreact to a player, but I didn't know how I wanted to frame it so that it could be viewed as an overreaction. And the framing I went with ended up being Walt Clayton Jr. is going to end the year with a higher Rookie of the Year voting rank than Ace Bailey. The second thing is this is not an anti-Ace Bailey take because he's been sick to start the year. This is a pro Walter Clayton Jr. take because I've been really impressed with his play, and it's pretty clear that Coach Hardy has as well. His box score numbers aren't going to, pop out at you in a major way. 10, 6, and 5 is actually pretty dang good for a debut with a couple of steals in there. He went from that to 10, 5, and 3 with one steal, and then in this most recent overtime victory, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. But what I'd like to point out is he went from 9th on the team in minutes in game 1 up to 7th on the team in minutes in game 2, up to 5th in minutes on the team in game 3. And in both of our close games, he has been on the floor for the closing lineups. He has already gained the trust of Coach Hardy 3 games, even 2 games, because it was game 2 that he was on the closing lineup. 2 games into his career, that he can be on the floor when the game is in the final minutes and it's still up in the air, because the Jazz don't have a lot of ball handling, and Clayton can provide that for them in these tight games. You need 2 ball handlers on the court, and it's been Keontae and it's been Walt. And I just think ultimately he's going to be on the floor in big time situations for the Jazz. And I think the shot's going to fall at some point. I think he's going to get hot. I don't know when it's going to be, but I think at some point in the season, we're going to see some string of games where he's lighting it up from deep. And I could see him finishing just in the Rookie of the Year rankings, right? I don't think he's going to be viewed as a better prospect than Ace Bailey at the end of the year. But could his rookie season be viewed as more impressive at the end of the year just because of the experience he had coming in? Could it be viewed as a better rookie season in isolation than Ace? I could see that happening.
I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Well, look at the betting
I think
odds.
if the Jazz are, I think you're right. Compared to the odds for sure. I mean, Ace Bailey had a ton of hype coming out here, but I think if the Jazz are smart, the way they'll utilize Ace Bailey is very contained within the offense because I think he's best utilized in positions where Ace Bailey doesn't have to take more than like 2 or 3 dribbles of possession. And I mean, obviously, as he gets comfortable, as he develops, like, he'll probably be able to take on more ISO situations, help break a defense. But I think for this rookie year, Walter Clayton's going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. He's going to be asked to do a lot more than I think Ace Bailey is, at least for his rookie year. I mean, if you want me to rank that on a Hobbs scale, I'd probably put it at like a 4. Like, I just think you're right. I think he's going to have more production looking numbers than Ace is, especially this rookie year.
I think about last year's Rookie of the Year race and about how the guy who ended up winning it, Stephon Castle, was a guy who spent a long time in college. He had a lot of deep March Madness runs, and we were able to see how he came closer to a finished product because of how much he played in college. And he just got a lot of experience, and Stephon Castle looked really, really comfortable coming into the league, and he was able to have a really successful rookie year, and he's built on it this year. I think if this ends up being true, we're going to see a similar trajectory for Walter Clayton Jr. He's another guy who had a ton of experience in college, played a lot of games, and he looks super comfortable out there. I was watching the overtime win and seeing him in the closing lineups and seeing just how quickly he was moving and about how he was fearless taking shots in the final minutes. He hit that monster three to help win the game in overtime. And he's a guy who just is not scared at all about the stage, and he is just super excited to be there. Where Ace is still a really young player, he's extremely talented, much higher ceiling than a guy like Walter Clayton Jr., but we haven't seen him at 100% yet, and we don't know how quickly he's going to adjust to playing against NBA level talent, which with Walter Clayton, we've seen in 3 games that it doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge issue for him. I still think that this is a hot take just because I think we're going to see Ace in a lot of opening lineups. I think he's going to get more minutes over the course of the season than Walter Clayton Jr. And even though Walter Clayton's been on a super, super hot streak, I think that Ace Bailey being a high draft pick and just with his scoring prowess that we're expecting him to have and the length of his body, he's going to be a highlight machine potentially. I think he's going to have a better marketing campaign than someone like Walter Clayton Jr. will, and he's going to have more opportunities to just show what kind of player he is. I think this was a pretty spicy take. I think this is definitely after the first week that builds into that overreaction category. I think it could happen. I would just be extremely surprised if after 82 games, if Ace hasn't leapfrogged Walter Clayton by a pretty significant margin.
That's why it's called overreactions, baby. And I didn't mention this, but I think my most impressive thing with Walt, he's like flying in for these rebounds, which Will Hardy loves, and I'm sure that's earning him minutes. Like out of our guards, he is getting in there with the bigs and pulling down rebounds, which has been pretty impressive.
Oh, for sure. Definitely a winning player, even only 3 games into the league. All right, last overreactions. This one's from me, and this is about a guy that really I just wanted a opportunity to talk about Svi Mykhailiuk. I have been having so much fun watching him play basketball this season. And my hot take is that the Jazz front office is actually going to get more calls regarding Svi Mykhailiuk at the trade deadline than they are about Lauri Markkanen. Now, caveat, this is not me saying that Svi Mykhailiuk is a better player than Lauri. That is not what I'm saying at all. That is
That's
a
exactly what you're
falsehood.
saying.
That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm trying to make that extremely clear so no one comes at me in the comments. However, I think if you look at Svi Mykhailiuk's contract compared to the impact he can have for a team who's looking to make a deep run, like he's an awesome player you would love to have as like the seventh, eighth guy on your team. Just to give you a couple stats, he's basically averaging 10, 3, and 2 assists with a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, almost 2 steals a game. He's been super efficient from the field, over 52%. And as of right now, he's shooting 50% from 3 at almost 5 attempts per game. And he's playing almost 30 minutes for us. He has a very, very reasonable contract. He signed 4 years, 15 million last year. He's in the second year of that deal. He's making less than 4 million this year. And in my mind, just because he's been in the league since like 2017, I think he's like 35. He's still only 28 years old. Like he is still in what should be the prime of his basketball career. And I can't see why a team who is really trying to make a deep run, wouldn't want somebody who has his size and his relative small number of mistakes and his ability to space as someone who can help them make a deep playoff run. And he's got such a small salary that it should be theoretically really easy to make that trade. Whereas opposed to Markkanen, you got to figure out how to fit $40 million into your cap where we have a first and a second apron. So that's my take. Svi is going to be one of the trade deadline darlings, and the Jazz are going to have a lot of opportunities to potentially ship him to another team.
Lando, what do you think?
I think it's a hot take, and the main reason I think it's kind of a hot take is because players with his skill set are kind of dime a dozen in the NBA right now. Everybody's got a guy like him. He can shoot, above average from three, space the floor, doesn't make mistakes, but that's about it. And I think, like his impact on a team, as far as like what the NBA style of play is now, I don't think is quite that big. What I could see happening is the Jazz using him, package him with some trade deals, especially since his contract, like the amount of money he's making is so small. Like there's a lot of flexibility you do with him. But I could see him being a sweetener to try and lure in kind of a bigger fish or some other trade. But I don't know. I don't think there are a lot of teams that are looking at him and being like, he's the guy that's going to put us over the edge.
Yeah, with Svi, he's off to a good start this year. I think a lot of our players are. Prior to this season, though, he was known as like a tank commander last year, which if I'm a team looking to get an upgrade, I don't know if I want somebody who just a season ago was known as a tank commander. So he definitely helped the Jazz land the top lottery odds last year. So I don't think there's going to be interest in Svi, if I'm being honest with you.
I'm going to love with you guys. I actually 100% believe this one. I recognize that I'm in the minority here. I get what you guys are saying. I just think that this year, especially when the East is going to be wide open, that there's not a lot of players who I think are that cheap with that skill set. So I
Svi is not
legit
making the difference for anybody. The buyout market is just as like you're getting
we'll see.
just
We'll
get somebody
see.
on the buyout market if there
We'll
is even
see.
is one. Svi's not making a difference for anybody.
I, I believe in Svi, but that's okay. This is why we disagree. It makes it more fun. Um, but that is going to be interesting just to see what happens between now and the trade deadline because we are still only 3 games into the season and we're going to have a lot more information in the coming weeks to see are these overreactions? Are these takes going to be accurate? Or are some of these overreactions going to actually be closer to reality than we think? And we're going to have a lot of time to talk about it throughout the upcoming season. Moving into segment 2 of our podcast, this is going to be a weekly segment where we look at the performances throughout the entirety of the week and we each choose a favorite performance. This could be a player over the course of the week, it could be an individual game, it could even be an individual play where we just saw a moment that we thought was a real high note for the player and or for the team and we just really wanted to give somebody a shout out. So this high note segment will be continuing out throughout the rest of the season. And it's exciting because there's a lot of players that we wish we could talk about more that we could give a shout out to. And this gives us a platform to quickly do that each and every week. We started off with Landon first in the last segment. So let's go ahead and do Kyler first.
All right. I don't think you can honestly do this segment this week without talking about the first 50-point performance since 1998. 98. Karl Malone, people. I was in diapers the last time a Jazz man scored 50 points in a game until our most recent overtime victory against the Suns, and that's Lauri Markkanen. One thing I don't think, I mean, Landon wasn't here, so I guess you can get a pass, but J. Bobby and I didn't discuss leading into the season in our episodes enough was how good Lauri was in Eurobaskets and how the last time that he balled out for Finland, he was an all-star for the Jazz. And so far, it's looking like, can this dude just go ball for Finland every single summer? Because when he does, he comes out swinging. Apart from that, in game two, he had 33 points on 23 shots. But I really loved Markkanen's game. Doesn't really strike you as somebody who's going to get a ton of free throw attempts, but in that 51-point performance, 17 free throw attempts from Lauri Markkanen. Absolutely beautiful. His shot is looking really clean. He is super confident. I love the variety of ways the Jazz are getting him the ball inside too. Just if there's somebody small on him, just pass it up high and he'll just flip it over the defender. So I thought it would be disingenuous for me to start this segment without talking about the 50 bomb from Lowry that was critical in us getting a win. He was plus 26 in a game that we won by 4 in overtime.
Yeah, it's hard to have a better individual game than that. I think sometimes within the larger scope of the NBA, because there are so many talented players and there are so many franchises who have been more relevant than the Jazz in recent years, that it's easy for the NBA community at large to forget how incredible Lauri Markkanen is when he is at his best. And he has looked energized, he's looked focused, and he's just wanted to show the world that he is still one of the most impactful players in the league, even if he hasn't won any awards or anything the last few years. Um, I think this was the clear high note of the week was to see a player for the Jazz really have an incredible individual performance that after we lost Rudy Gobert, after we lost Donovan Mitchell, we didn't know when we were going to have a player who is going to have those type of moments again and be in that kind of a conversation as an all-star, potentially all NBA level type of player. And Lauri Markkanen has, at least so far this season, especially with the most recent game, played himself into that conversation by default, regardless of how the Jazz are viewed in the NBA at large, because he's just been that good.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when you said that was the first 50-point game a Jazz players had since Karl Malone. That's wild. I think that does speak to just how good he is, and I think how efficient he is. I think this is a type of offense where the ball moves a lot and you kind of spread the wealth. So to score that many points, you have to be efficient in this offense. So I think that's exciting. Like Jazz fans should be excited about that.
Yeah, can't say enough good things about how Laurie has started this year.
Yeah. For any of the casual fans or non-Jazz fans looking for a reason to turn them on League Pass or SEG Plus for the locals, he is a reason to want to tune in every single night because he could legitimately be like a 38-6 guy for the season, and that would not necessarily surprise me.
I'd be surprised if he ended at 30. I think that's pretty rarefied territory, but his career high, I think, is certainly within reach. I do want to clarify the 50-point thing. They have Donovan did score 50 in the playoffs, so it was the first 50-point regular season game. So since '98.
Yeah. Well, it is hard to top the first 50-point game since Kyler and I were tiny little children. Um, but we did have some other incredible performances through these first three games that we want to talk about. Landon, let's move over to you. And who is your high note for the week?
Um, yeah, I mean there are a lot of options for this. I'm gonna go with Keontae George, specifically Keontae George in that last game against Phoenix. He averaged 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists. And again, I think part of why I loved what he did in that game was just kind of the maturity that he showed. I think the decision making wasn't just I scored 20 points. It was like when he chose to shoot, when he chose to pass. We saw a lot of growth out of Keontae so far this year, and I think he's going to end up being a winning player because of it. There's one play I think that highlights that specifically. It was late in the second quarter against Phoenix. He passes the ball to Walker Kessler in the corner. Then Walker Kessler comes up. They do kind of a dribble handoff. Keontae Jordan kind of looks like he wants to take the three, but he dribbles in. Then he hits Walker Kessler for a pocket pass, who dunks it. And I think there were a couple points in that play where Walker Kessler either would have pulled up for a three and probably missed it, or he would have taken like a bad mid-range floater. But instead, he was kind of patient. He was controlled. He made the right read, and he hit Walker Kessler for a point. And so I think his ability to do that paired with his ability to kind of score and, space the floor a little bit and kind of make defenses scratch their heads when, you have to run a pick and roll against him, I think are going to be very important for the Jazz going forward. I think it's going to help them win.
Yeah, I think his decision making has been awesome this year. I know J Bobby and you've already talked about the assists, how much of an uptick he's seen. He's already had two double doubles, which like isn't something he has a ton of in his career. And even in game one, he missed it by one assist. So the assists are definitely pouring in. And I'm really happy with his decision making for the most part. There's been, some things to improve still, definitely, especially I think down the stretch, he's had a couple of rough turnovers, but in games 2 and 3 so far this year, but for the most part, really, really good. My favorite play is probably the scoop alley oop to Walker Kessler. And he got like really pumped after that play as well. He's playing really well.
I know we've talked about the assists a lot, but I just want to mention it one more time just because he's in really rarefied territory. He's averaging almost 10 assists per game. He's had 9, 10, and 10 in his first 3 games. And the only two players in the league who are averaging more than that right now are Nikola Jokic and James Harden, who are two of the best passers that the NBA have seen since any of us have been alive. So the fact that he has been so focused on the passing and that he's been so good at it, I think really shows the maturity we've seen. I think everyone who is on Keontae George Island or has stock in Keontae George, like this is a year where they're going to be able to start cashing tickets. Even though it's been a small sample size so far, he looks like a guy who has fully made that transition into being a point guard, fully embracing that role, and he's been executing it at a super high level. And it's so much fun to see what we had always hoped he could become as a player when we initially drafted him, but knew he wasn't there yet. To see like he's like actually pretty much there now. And if he can continue up this streak, then he's going to be exactly what the Jazz are hoping that he would become when they chose to draft him. All right. Last high note is for me. This is going to be a really, really quick one. And I've just loved watching Kyle Filipowski play. Um, he's been playing as a power forward in most of his minutes. He's been in the starting lineup, and that is a lot to ask for a guy who's played center his whole career and is a second round pick who was only drafted the year before. And I've really felt like he's been a glue guy for the Jazz offense this season. Nothing in his stat sheet is going to jump off for you. He's averaging a triple single. It's not like his stats are that crazy, but he has looked so just consistently bought into his role on helping the team win games. There was one game where he had 4 assists and only 1 turnover, and he's had a couple of 10-point games as well on top of that. So even though there's been nothing that's really been flashy, his plus minus has been really, really good. In the game against Sacramento, he had the highest plus minus on the team at plus 19, and he played close to 30 minutes that game. So to have a guy playing that many minutes in a loss and still have that high of a plus minus, you know you're doing something right for your team. And that's been really exciting for me is to see Kyle Filipowski, who when he was drafted, I just assumed he was going to be Walker's backup in perpetuity, and seeing how he's adjusted his game and embraced his role as not the position we thought he was going to be has been really exciting for me as someone who's bought into the Jazz, bought into the role that Will Hardy has defined for him, at least right now in his career, and has just done a very unflashy job at keeping the team together and moving forward in this right direction.
His ability to stretch the ball at the 4, I think, really opens up a lot of fun things for the Jazz, lineup wise and kind of play wise.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned some of their lineups have a lack of ball handling. I think he's actually one of the better ball handlers on the team. And so that's where the versatility and the glue guy aspect comes into it because in lineups where it's like ace at the 2 and say Hendricks at the 3 and then Filipowski at the 4, Filipowski is your second best ball handler in a lineup like that, besides whoever's playing the point. And so just doing whatever the role requires to win is what he's been doing a good job at to start the year.
Late in that Phoenix game, he brought the ball up multiple times when they were trying to trap Keontae, and he just brought the ball up and made a pass, and he looked super comfortable in that role, which we knew that he had pretty good handles for a big guy coming out of the draft, but I didn't think that it was going to translate this well this early in his career. So he definitely is exceeding expectations so far, even if there's not anything just looking at the box score, that would necessarily stand out for you. But when you watch him for 30 minutes a night, you see all the little things that he does that helps the Jazz be so successful so far through the first three games. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I love the segment. I love being able to bring a lot of that positivity and shout out some of the players and some of these really fun performances and plays throughout the week. We're going to be bringing back this segment throughout the rest of the week. And who knows, maybe if we have some players who don't perform as well, or we have a couple more rough weeks down the road, we'll be able to maybe call out some of the areas of improvement. We're going to have to come up with a name for that segment, but it's definitely fun to look at these games a little bit more individually.
That brings us to our third and final segment of today's podcast. Every single week, we want to end the pod with a little bit of a friendly competition. And we're bringing this back for the second week. Last week, just to recap before we hop into this week's game, we played a little game we call I've Got a Dollar. Landon was not with us, so it was just Jay, Bobby, and I. And we had $1 to make bets on opening nights. I hit one of my bets for Bryce to have 15 plus points, and I turned my dollar into $1.05 for a 5-cent profit. J Bobby hit on two of his bets, over 226.5 and over Walker Kessler first quarter points, and he ended up with $1.31 total. So he ends up winning the week one game. For our game this week, we're playing a game I like to call the Skibbity Bop Bop Stat Draft, all right, where there are a few different statistical categories, and each of us have a category that we're going to choose, and then we're going to draft which players we think will have the best numbers in that category. Each of us will pick two players, and it'll be in a snake draft, and then whichever duo has the most points or assists or whatever that category is, that player will win that category. Whoever wins the most categories will win the week. So, first up, we are going to start with J Bobby. What is your first stat category that we are going to be drafting in today's game?
The Jazz have had a fun team that is deep, and we've seen a lot of guys getting minutes. So the first category I want to go with is bench points.
Interesting. Okay, bench points is an interesting category because I don't know if there's 6 guys to choose from. But so for this, the way that our Zoom call is laid out, so whoever nominated the topic will have the third and fourth pick, and then whoever's the next to them clockwise will have the first pick. So for this, I have the first pick for J Bobby's nominations. Landon, you'll have the first pick for my. J Bobby, you'll have the first pick for Landon's. So with the number 1 pick in the bench points draft, I'm selecting Bryce Sensabaugh. I think that one's pretty clear.
Shocker. So that's me, right?
Yep. Who do you want with the second pick?
I'm gonna surprise people. Say Ace Bailey. I think he's gonna have a breakout game.
All right. I like it.
Dang it. I was hoping I'd get him at 3 and 4. I'm going to take Walter Clayton Jr.
Okay.
and Yusuf Nurkic.
Okay. And then who's your second pick, Landon?
We're going with Taylor Hendricks.
Yep, that's the easy choice. I'm going to see that's the guys that play consistent minutes. I'm going to try and play a sneaky bet here. I think the Jazz might start Ace at some point in this week, and that would move Svi to the bench, and so I'm going to pick Svi.
Good pick.
Okay. Second category. Landon, you pick. What's your first statistical category that we're going to draft?
3-point percentage.
All right, 3-point percentage. J Bobby is up with the first pick. Who will lead the Jazz in 3-point percent?
I'm going to take the guy who continues to impress and take Markkanen.
All right. I have the next pick. I guess I'm doubling down on Bryce Sensabaugh.
Let's keep this gravy train growing. I'm gonna say Walker Kessler.
There we go. It's just percentage. Yeah. And you get back-to-back picks here.
Walter Clayton Jr.
I like it. Svi's shooting 50%. I'm gonna have the same two players for both of the statistical categories so
Dang.
far.
Hmm. I'm going to take, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Ace.
All right, yeah, he showed some nice stuff from three last game. Finally got going a bit scoring wise. That brings me to my first statistical category. I'm gonna go with the more kind of basic of my two. I'm going with minutes. Who's gonna play the most minutes for the Jazz? Which means Landon, you're up with the first pick for this one.
Going with Laurie Markkinen.
Yep, easy first choice. J. Bobby,
Deontay.
you're going with Keontae. That makes sense. I'm going to go. Those are easily the best two picks. I'm gonna go with Kessler and Flip. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kessler and Flip.
Good picks. I'm going to take, I want to take Clayton, but Svi has been getting a ton of minutes, so I'm going to take Svi.
Okay. And here's the last pick here, Landon.
It's Walter Clayton.
Yep, I think that's the right pick. He was fifth in minutes last game, so I think getting him at 6 is a good value. All right, circling back around, J. Bobby.
All right, we're going to go another basic one, free throw percentage. The Jazz have been not bad.
Free throw percentage. Okay. I'm first. If we're going percentage, I'm going Clayton. He was a 90% shooter last year in college.
Go with the guy who went 17 for 17, Laurie Markkinen.
That was the other guy I was debating.
I'm taking Sensabaugh
Yep.
and Keontae, who are both shooting extremely well from the line so far.
Yep.
I will take Filipowski.
Okay. With my next pick, I think we have all the best shooters down. I'll go with Svi. I have Svi in 3 of our 4 categories. And I was not the pro Svi guy earlier on in the podcast. I love to see it.
Most tradable player.
It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
He's boosting that trade value that he supposedly has, but definitely doesn't. All right.
Deep roster Jazz. Let's go.
Landon, what is your second statistical category?
My second one is assists.
Assists. Okay. G Bobby, you have the number 1 pick. Pretty easy here.
Keontae George. Emphatically.
What? No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna go with Walt.
Let's say Walker Kessler.
Kessler, nice. The big man assists. And you have back to back here.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with big man. I'm going to say Yusuf Nurkic.
Man, I was hoping I could get him on the way back. Next up on assists, I will go Flip.
All right. Which leaves me with Markkinen.
All right.
I'll take
Sweet.
that.
And we have one more, and that is my last one, and that is the highest plus minus. That is total for the week. The combined, just so everyone's aware, we have 4 games that are going to be going on, 3 on the road between recording this on Tuesday night and recording next Tuesday night. You're up, Landon.
Plus minus. Walker Kessler, my number 1.
All right.
I'm going to go with Markkinen. Our opening lineups have been really solid, and he's been really great.
Yep, that was a solid choice. You said he led the team in the Sacramento loss, so I'm going to go with Flip here as my
I thought
first
about him
pick.
at 2. I thought about him at 2.
And then after that, I will go with Keontae.
Let's say Walt.
All right. Oh no, it's Bobby's pick, so he can snipe Walt from you if he wants.
We're gonna snipe Walt.
Okay. All right. You have to choose a new player here. The final selection of this game.
Sensabaugh still on the table, right?
Yep, Price is on the board. All right. So we have 6 categories: bench points, 3-point percentage, minutes, free throw percentage, assists, and plus minus. I'm not going to go through every pick because that would take too long, but we will recap who wins the draft. Again, it's going to go both players. What do the duo combine for? And whoever wins that category wins a point, and whoever has the most points wins the week. That's all for our weekly contest. And that's it for the pod. So thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you've made it this far into the podcast, we would really appreciate it. And if there are certain games or topics that you'd like us to discuss in future podcast episodes, let us know by leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for listening. And that'll be all for the Upper Bowl Perspective.